Welcome to episode 4, season 2 of Press Play and Run with me, your host Ryan Miller. We've got a cracker for you today. I'm joined by the biggest runner in TikTok, self-proclaimed, and after speaking to him, I can vouch for him. Like me, he's also 6'4" with a great head of hair and full of just strapping muscle, so I can completely identify with today's guest, and I'm sure you're going to love hearing from Johnny Davies. Cracking guy, and he's doing an unbelievable challenge, so we'll get you to that conversation just as soon as we can. But I've got a bit to catch you up on, as always, about the couple of weeks that have been since we last spoke. First of all, thank you so much for all the feedback on episode 3 with Martin Gray. Both the feedback to Martin himself and via the podcast channel has been outstanding, and it's just continuing to grow in terms of numbers, downloads, its place in the charts, and all these things that don't matter to anybody else, but gives us a sign that we're on the right things and that we're doing something that's connecting with that everyday running community. So thank you to everybody that takes that time to comment, share, like, review, rate. All of these things make a massive difference, more than you probably understand in terms of that visibility. So again, thank you for that. Let's keep up that momentum. I think I left you the last time talking about the fact we had our upcoming parkrun takeover for Press Play and Run. So we had 29 people, I think, in total at Strathclyde Park for that, and we fulfilled every volunteer role. I was shadow race director on the day with Pat Smith, one of our former guests. We had an absolute cracking day, really busy, 400 plus runners at that, some milestones of people we knew as well. We had our social 5k run afterwards, and we met up at the Water Sports Centre cafe afterwards for a coffee and a catch up. Loads of people, loads of Instagram squares meeting each other for the first time. I'm not sure I should be calling them that actually. And people from Instagram squares meeting people for the first time, and it was a great day. Loads of laughter, hung about. I think we were there gassing and drinking coffee for about twice as long as we were actually running. So always great spending time and getting to know the people that are listening and getting to know people that you see on the app every day. And I appreciate absolutely people putting themselves out there and some of the nerves that are attached to turning up at something like that. So keep doing it. And if you're worried, if you wanted to be there and you couldn't quite get over the doorstep this time, there will be plenty more opportunities coming up. Since I last spoke to you as well, I made a bit of a huge announcement personally, in that I have a charity place for the London Marathon in 2024. So I'm going to fulfil one of my running bucket lists moments of getting to run in the biggest marathon in the world. It's something I think I've spoken about openly on here, about always having been squeamish in the past about taking on a charity place and asking people for money. But with the ballot odds getting longer and longer and failed attempt after failed attempt, it seems like it might be the only tangible way of me actually getting to run this marathon. Good for ages out of the equation for London for me at this stage of my running and where I'm at. So we're going at it. I'm going to try and use the platform that we have to encourage businesses to get involved and to raise money in a way that's offering some value to the people donating, rather than me just sort of shaking the tin and asking for money. Of course, people are so generous with their donations. We're already about £400, I think £450 along the way to a target of £2,300, and I'm so hugely appreciative of that. That's been through selling the podcast buffs, profits, proceeds from that going there, and people also just making individual donations. So I'm hugely grateful for it, and I will share the link off the back of this episode if people want to support and are in a position. There is no pressure to support, but if you're in a position to and you want to, every penny will be hugely appreciated. I am raising money for Place to Be mental health charity, and they provide mental health services directly to children and staff in schools. They do an unbelievable job. They are a crucial service in an aspect of education which is always swamped, where the demand always outstrips what you have available for it. That gives me a way of still tapping into something that I've been a part of in my whole career up to now, albeit in a very different guise. But I'm also going to have a few opportunities coming up for our Press Play and Run community to get involved in some of those fundraising activities, actually through some running events, but also we're planning on having a run retreat. Very, very close to being able to confirm details about that, but it's really, really exciting. You might remember me discussing with Sophia Thane about the Lululemon run retreat, and we're going to model something along those lines. I can't wait to get people from the community together in that capacity as well, and hopefully raise some more money towards that target. On the actual running front, I've been chipping away, still managing to stay consistent and building up the pace. I've been doing a lot of speed work actually, 5k speed work, and that's with a view to trying to achieve that sub-19 target at a park run. I'm not too far away. I don't think the attempt will be that far in the future. I was hoping to hang off from a 100 park run, but I'm probably about to hit the sweet spot over the next week or two of giving that an absolute crack. I'll keep you updated on it and hopefully we'll get there. You'll see me celebrating. Obviously, we put the wins on Instagram, so you will hear all about it, or you might have already heard all about it, who knows. I've also got the Paisley 10k coming up, and the preparation has continued for the Loch Ness 24 marathon with the Who Dropped the Dibber crew. So I'm running in the relay of the 24-hour race. I think the most significant thing that's happened in my preparation for that was actually getting my tent through that I had ordered from Decathlon. So it's one of these pop-up things. True to form, it took me less than 10 seconds to have that up in the back garden, so I was feeling quite smug. I must say, when it talks about folding it just as quickly and putting it back in, absolute lies. So Nicola and I are a step closer to divorce. It turns out that neither of us are particularly good at reading the instructions on how to actually get the bloody thing back in the bag. And as I was getting more irate, Nicola was trying to do that silent laugh. Anybody that's ever been in church or chapel will know it, when you're trying so hard not to laugh but the shoulders are going. I could see it in her. Honestly, I could see it. I was getting redder by the minute. She was starting to sort of edge away towards the door. Even the dogs went inside. They couldn't take it anymore. They could see that the explosion was coming. So we eventually got it back in there. And I won't be repeating the silly act of taking it out the bag until we get to Loch Ness and I'm actually pitching that bloody thing. So if it all goes poorly, I might just need to run for the whole 24 hours and ignore the sleeping, because that was a palaver. I also had my first gym session at Everlast Gym at the Glasgow Fort, so that's been refurbed and reopened with a functional fitness suite. So you'll know as well from that same announcement as the London Marathon that I'm taking on High Rocks in Manchester in January. As somebody who has done no strength work for quite a long time and should be doing far more of it, this is going to be the thing that I'm hoping will give me the kick up the bum to be consistent with the strength work as I am with my running training. And that's all with a view of having London Marathon in mind. I want to do the strength work that's going to help to improve my performance in London. Yes, that will be about the experience, about the moment, about ticking off a bucket list moment, but I want to go and perform the best I can and hopefully come out feeling as happy about my performance there as I did at Edinburgh in May. So I was in the gym, I put a reel together. It all looked very good because I was showing you like half-second clips, because again, that's what we do on Instagram. The reality is that I've been walking like John Wayne for the 3 days after. I look like I've just parked a bloody horse. So I've got a long, long way to go there. I'm going to have to just suck it up, run through some of the DOMs and build up as gradually as I have to. I've left myself plenty of time, but that first day feeling of walking into the gym, every bit of me didn't want to do it, didn't want to go in. I felt like a fish up a tree again in there. I defaulted straight to the sort of curved treadmill. First time I've ever actually run in one of those for the first K, just to have a look around. And I thought, I'll get there when it's quiet. I was there at, I think, 8 o'clock in the morning. And there was a bloody queue right down the street at the fort. It was about 4 shops worth of people queued, waiting to get in. I didn't realise I was going for it actually opening. I thought I was just going early. Yeah, I got over it, I got in there and I got it done, and as always with these things, nobody bloody cares. Everybody's too busy doing what they do and not worried about what I was doing, thank goodness. I thought I was doing okay until I saw some of the video clips back, but let's just say I've got a long way to go to achieve some of the movement standards involved in High Rocks. But I'll throw myself at it. I do love a challenge, and that one's going to certainly be one that takes me well out of my comfort zone. It's been good to get back running with the club as well. We've got a few people there gearing up for autumn marathons, really ramping up their mileage, ramping up their paces. So some of those club runs have been getting a bit tasty in terms of pace and distance, but it's been good. It stops me sort of just trickling along and running at the same pace every day. We got the Press Play and Run merchandise released, so thank you to Mikey from Michael Sports, another former guest. That's available. I've been sharing it through the socials. If you're looking for a t-shirt or a buff, you can find it through the Facebook group. You'll find the links there, or you can go into the Instagram profile at Press Play and Run Podcast, and you'll find the link to get the merch there. Facebook group's really growing, but I think we've got nearly 150 people in there now. There seems to be people just joining every day. Brilliant atmosphere in there. My favourite thing that's happening in there so far is on a Monday, people sharing their sort of highlights, lowlights of the week. A lot more of them are highlights, but brilliant to see people getting their wins, a range of wins from representing their country this week through to getting out for 5Ks, getting out for couch to 5K. it just shows you that there's wins to be had everywhere when you start to think about the work that you're putting in. I'm feeling really motivated. I'm feeling really motivated by the podcast still. I'm feeling really motivated in my own running, and I've got so much to be thankful for the people that I've got surrounding me. Thank you for doing what you're doing. Let's keep up that momentum. Get involved in the events, and I'm really looking forward to just seeing what the next 6 months brings. Without further ado, I'm going to move us on to a conversation with Johnny Davies. Johnny is somebody with a big social media profile and somebody who's taken on a big challenge in running every line of the London Underground overground over 11 days. So without further ado, I'm going to hand you over to Johnny. I'm going to urge you to just keep getting the trainers on, press play and run. In this episode, I'm joined by a man that's found a novel way to deal with the London train strikes. He's building a reputation for taking on big challenges, openly sharing his running journey, the past that led him to it, and growing a community along the way. As he gets ready for his biggest challenge yet, I'm delighted to be joined on Press Play and Run by Johnny Davies. Welcome, Johnny. How are you?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm very well, and I'm delighted to actually make this happen with you. I know we've had a couple of false starts, but at the rate your social media is growing, I'm not surprised how busy you actually are at the moment. We'd planned actually to speak last week, so I'd made a series of notes for myself, and I'd written down like your followers and stuff, and now I've obviously gone back to check this morning. My days, you are growing at a rate of knots, fella. I can only imagine what your inbox must look like on a daily basis right now.
It's getting busy at the minute, but it's all great support. It seems that the content's resonating, connecting with people in a very positive manner, which is the whole idea behind it. It's sharing the story, being very authentic to everything that's going on in my life and my experiences through running, sharing the good, sharing the bad, sharing the struggles. You're not trying to make it look perfect because we're all human in the day. None of us are perfect. We all have ups and downs, and definitely sharing all sides of that. As I sort of venture into this world of insane running challenges that for some reason I'm drawn to. I haven't put that on it yet, but something about it that really does it for me.
No, your audience has grown with you. I think it will be fair to say, even if I say your name, Johnny Davies, some people in our community that listen to the podcast might say, oh, I don't know who it is. Then they're going to hear your voice, see your face and think, oh, he's popped up in my suggested page umpteen times. It's actually been nice to connect and have a look. It feels very much like I'm watching your running grow at the same time as your channel's growing, and you're getting it quite organic. It's not overly polished. It's kind of just as it is, and you're presenting it as it is. It's all getting better as it goes.
Yeah, it's definitely an improvement journey. I mean, from when I first started, I recently went back to see what my first series of videos were like. I mean, looking back at my first sort of 100 videos to now, it's almost been like, oh God, like I can't believe people watch those ones, but it's a process. End of the day, same. It's very similar to running in a sense of no one starts out with content and running being good.
No.
You've got to put the work in. You've got to put the reps in. You've got to struggle with it, and through that struggle, you eventually get better. So I've likened to my own development in running, my own development in content to be very similar, and having the two parallels running side by side has actually been quite an interesting journey to go on.
Yeah, and actually the striving for perfection can be such a barrier to both sides. If you're going to try and set out on the perfect training plan, the perfect run, I'm not sharing that. It's the exact same as the content. I went right back to the start to look, and your first videos were getting the same as everybody's gets, 60 views, 70 views. Your most recent videos are getting 1 million views and more, but it doesn't happen overnight. It's the same as the running. You didn't start off. We're going to launch into a bit about your upcoming challenge, but you don't start where you've ended up now. You start somewhere, which is with a run.
Exactly. You start with a run. You start with whatever you can do, and that's you put your best foot forward, whether it's content or running, and that's it. I mean, remember my first times venturing into running, it was looking back at it now, because I always screenshot things from Strava for my very first ones. I got them saved, and I always like to look back at those thinking, I remember those times of how hard that was, just get one from one or the other, thinking, God, when will this end?
Yeah.
Same way looking at my first videos again, it's not pretty now looking back, but at the time that was the best I could do, and I'm okay with that. I may look back and think, they're better now, but it's a case of at that moment that was the best thing I could deliver with the experience I had, and it's all a learning process. Then you put the time and effort in, and it continues to get better as long as you have that desire to move it forward and to improve on it. It's inevitable that it will get better over time.
It gives you authenticity. You're not trying to present it as a polished thing that it wasn't to begin with. You're not deleting old videos because these ones are better.
Oh, no.
It's all
they're all staying up there. They're all up there. for everyone to see. Go back.
You don't have time now. You need a personal assistant. You don't even have time to delete.
Not enough time at all. And I actually find it quite funny looking back at them. And again, like I shared some a few weeks ago, I shared some of my first videos just to give an example. Being like, look, you may see people, running crazy distances and incredibly fast times. Same way you may see people make content and get lots of engagement, lots of views on it. But no one starts out with that. You've got to start out at the beginning and be honest with it, because it takes time to build up to those things. It takes time to build up to them. The same way, when I first started running, the concept, the idea of a marathon, let alone an ultra marathon, let alone a challenge run like this, would have scared the living shit out of me. Yeah. Same with content, like the idea of how do you get a video to perform well, I just didn't understand it. But what I could do is talk about what I'm doing and share my story and find points that resonate with other people in there. Because at the end of the day, again, we're all human. We all feel roughly the same emotions on a day-to-day basis. It doesn't matter what challenge you're doing. We all put our trousers one leg on at a time. We all feel the emotions in there. So.
And I'm going to come back and ask you a bit about the content, because obviously a lot of people are into sharing their running, and it's not all for nobody's setting out, I don't think, with, I'm going to get 1 million views, or that's not how it works. It's about you're sharing for a reason, you're looking for something, and we're going to come to that. What I am going to do is take us just back a touch, and I'm going to give you a bit of a potted history of what I know from listening off another podcast that you did quite recently, and I'm going to link to that in the episode in case anybody wants to take a deep dive, so I'm not rehashing old ground. But I'll give you a potted history. I know you're fairly new to running. Yep. I know you come from a rugby background. I know you come from a quite an experienced gym goer, lifting and running type background. Unlike myself, it's a running joke on here that I'm allergic to strength work, but I'm changing. I'm making a resolution to do it. And you're now finding yourself at the point where you're finding your niche in these sort of ultra marathon type challenges, and there's a community growing around you. But I want to probably rewind to the catalyst for making the change in your life and running becoming a part of it. Can we start there?
Absolutely. So it was in my previous sort of life of work. I was working in financial tech, had done for many years. I was in a work trip pre-COVID. So January 2020, I was over in Vancouver, Canada on a work trip. And something just hit me. I was working while I was out there for a couple of weeks, a series of meetings, really wasn't happy. My physical health wasn't great. Mental health really wasn't great. I wasn't particularly enjoying what I was doing. I was in a bit of a confused position, and I'd never really ran anything before. And I think it was a mixture of jet lag, frustration, sheer what am I doing with my life here, that I grabbed a pair of shoes, 5 a.m, went out in the blistering cold and rain and sleet of West Coast Canada in January, and pitch dark, and I ran about 12k. I didn't know what I was doing, had no idea. Heart rate was through the roof, legs were burning, lungs were burning, felt awful, but I just kind of wanted to get out of my head a little bit and just take a bit of time. And I'm not. I think a big part of it as well. People talk about meditation, clear their mind. Running is a form of meditation. I didn't realize at the time. I can't sit still for 2 seconds. So it's one of those things where I was just so confused with the direction I was going in life, and I wasn't sure what any of that meant for me. And I just wanted to do something different. And so I just thought, you know what? Let's just put one foot in front of the other. See that clears your head a bit. And I loved it. I was just like, it was incredibly difficult. I was definitely not in any fit state. I'd been out the night before. I had about 4 hours sleep. So I was incredibly hungover as well. It wasn't a particularly enjoyable experience, but it was a rewarding experience. And I think with one of those things, it's not easy. It doesn't get easier. You just sort of improve over time. And it was just the reward. People talk about the endorphins you get off going for runs and whatnot. I just think it was more a case of, I was able to, for an hour or so, probably more than an hour, it was 12k, I was very slow, for more than 90 minutes, I was just able to kind of clear my head, look at things through a different lens, get out my own way a little bit, and just ask some questions of myself that I hadn't been asking. I find that whenever I run, it's your mind sort of is able to go to a place where you can have those conversations with yourself that usually you can distract yourself from. Usually you can look at your phone, it's going through the day-to-day, there are so many opportunities to distract ourselves from having a hard conversation with ourselves about what are we doing with this? Why are we doing this? Why are we doing that? And often, we just end up doing the things we do through no thought or direct action. We just end up doing them. And I felt like a bit of a case of a bit like a paper bag in the wind at that point. And I was a bit like kind of going through the motions of it all. And I just thought, I don't know what I'm going to do here, but you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to commit to just this feels right. This feels right. Going out the door and doing that. So the next day, I woke up at 5 a.m. again, and I ran 10k around the same place, Stanley Park in Vancouver. Really beautiful place, by the way. It's right by the sea. And I went a bit slower. I'd read online that evening a bit about, maybe don't try and run as fast as you can the whole way through. My legs were still really stiff. I felt awful. I didn't have proper winter wear. I was wearing a pair of 3-inch rugby shorts and like a t-shirt, and I was drenched. I was cold. I was soaking wet, but I really, really enjoyed it. And I was like, okay, I don't know what this is, but it seems to be doing something, because I felt, my thoughts were a bit clearer the rest of the day. I felt, a certain sense of satisfaction by doing this. And I was like, okay, I don't know what it's going to lead to, but I'm just going to keep committing to doing this a couple of times a week. See how I can introduce this in there. And again, I've always been, avid gym goer. I love strength training. And I'd never really found any groove with cardio. I mean, rugby is rugby, it's physical, but it's you're going at it all the time.
Yeah.
It's not a long endurance thing. It's, a series of explosive runs. And so it felt very different, because running was probably the one part of rugby I disliked the most anyway. So it felt weird doing this thing that the one part of the sport I liked that I didn't like, I'm now spending time doing.
Yeah.
There is a certain element to doing the thing you dislike the least, and sort of taking ownership of that, being like, well, if I can find a way to enjoy the thing I dislike the least, what are the other things in life I don't enjoy that I probably should be doing?
Yeah.
Maybe I can start doing. Maybe I can start conquering those things. Because in my mind beforehand, the idea of running a 10K or 12K was this mountain up here that I didn't want to try and climb. Whereas all of a sudden, it's not such a big thing anymore. And then it made the other things I had to deal with in life not so big as well. And it kind of just sort of went on this journey of, right, okay, what are the things we're doing in life that we don't like? What are things in life we're doing that we don't enjoy? What are things in life that really took a real direct view?
Big questions. These are really big questions, and actually the run doesn't bring all the answers, but it makes you ask yourself the question at least. So you're addressing it. And if I'm not good at mindfulness in the sense of sitting down quiet, and my life and my mind are too busy, but on a run, you've no choice. If you're running for long enough, you will ask yourself every question you don't want to ask.
100%. And I find the longer you run, the tougher these things are, the deeper you'll go into that zone. So that was kind of the start for it. And again, it was then COVID hit. So I had a very unique experience of running, whereby often people get into running because they see people running marathons or races or events. For this next sort of 2 years, there were no marathons, there were no races, there were no events on. So as I was getting into the world of running, I didn't see anyone running marathons. I didn't see anyone running races. So I was like, oh, that's almost like an irrelevancy. So I just got to spend 2 years enjoying running with no expectations of getting faster, no expectations of running further, no expectations of, I need to get this time to this time to this, none of that. And for the first year or so during COVID, I'd run a couple times a week, again, nice and easy, laying the foundations of what will eventually come. So for 1 year straight, I learned, okay, keep the heart rate nice and low, walk if you need to, just keep doing that, because it seems to be working. I'm enjoying it. Because I wasn't trying to get better at running, I was just trying to commit to a certain period of time per week for my own well-being. I laid a really good aerobic-based foundation. And so when I started going through the process, then the next year after, and I was like, okay, like what are we going to do from here? I started adding a bit more structure. So maybe adding in a faster run a week, and maybe adding in, a bit further. And I just caught myself wanting to see, okay, if you put this in, I could see the development pattern happening. I could see myself improving little by little. It wasn't big jumps. And I thought, okay, well, let's see, maybe run a half marathon, see what that, just on my own, and just go out for it. And again, because there was no expectation of time, it was just a case of, let's see if I can just do it.
COVID is an interesting one, because I think we're on episode, we must be in around 20 something. This is season 2, whatever. So I've spoken to maybe 20 odd people, maybe 15 have started their running in COVID. And their experience of beginning running is very different from mine, because you were rugby, I was football.
Okay, yeah.
And couldn't play football, let myself go a bit after football, knees weren't taking it, and got myself to a place where I wasn't happy in my head, in my body, and you start running. But I couldn't lose the football bit of every run has to be faster than the last run. And also races, this was 2017, races were everything for me. I was like trying to fill the competitive void.
Yeah.
So I was kind of running for what I would say at that point was the wrong reason, or trying to get the wrong thing, because I was never satisfied unless you're winning a race. And let's be frank,
there's always a goal there to try.
You're not bloody winning a race most of the time, because there's always somebody who's rapid. Even go to park run and trying to win one of those things is like mad. So if that's the driver, so I was doing all that running but wasn't getting the same clarity. But COVID brought it, because you'd nothing to run for but running sake. It's a really interesting one that it launched. Probably one of the worst things in all our life have been lockdown and that bit nobody talks about, the positive of, well, see, when you had to prioritise one thing, what did you choose? It was getting out, it was your health, it was yourself. So interesting place that you start from. And then, as you said, you start almost by accident thinking, oh, I wonder if I could try that.
Never a case of when I started this, I was like, right, I want to go run 100K or 100 mile or any of this. That was never in my mind whatsoever. It was just a case of I enjoyed it. And the other thing as well is I don't think I necessarily enjoyed the running part. It's just everything that comes with it, the structure, the consistency, how I felt afterwards, how I was able to ask this question to myself. There's nothing innate there's nothing special about putting one foot in front of the other that actually I'm going, right, here we go. There's most of the time I wake up going, oh God, I'll stare at my shoes for 20 minutes thinking, I don't really want to do this today. But
there's 100 ways to get all of that stuff that goes around it. You could swim, you could cycle, you could walk a mountain, but
100%.
The package and the connection with this community that you've grown, which I'll come to, is something that's maybe more unique to something like running. It's maybe more tangible for somebody who's done a group sport previously than walking a Munro in Scotland all by yourself.
Absolutely. I mean, that's probably part of the reason why I don't encourage people. It sounds weird as sort of being labeled as like a running influencer. I don't really tell people to run. Like, I'm not a big encourager. I tell people to do activities, to be active and to connect with, through physical exercise, some form of cardio based, whether that's running, cycling, swimming, walking, hiking, have something in there. That's why I'm never trying to convince people to run. It's like, if you don't want to, don't. Like, it's never a hard saying that. I'm also not saying that running is going to solve all your problems in life, because it certainly won't. It just, again, allows you, it's one of the many vehicles you can use to ask questions of yourself and provide you with some sort of something to consistently work at, where you see incremental improvements over time, and you only see improvements through work. There's no shortcut. There is no cheating at it. It's laid out there, which is the beauty. This is the beauty of it. But that's the same for all cardio-based sports. Like, you get out what you put in, and there's a certain beauty of that, a certain nature of that. No one's born being great at running. Everyone's got to work at it. No one can cheat it. No one can sort of half-ass the training program and then get an amazing time. Like, it all comes out of the wash.
It's not like, again, a team sport where on a bad day your teammates can rally around and almost mask that. If you are not putting the work in, you're not getting the rewards out. It's just as simple as that. There's nowhere to hide in a run. Has your relationship changed, Johnny, at all with racing? Since obviously you started when there weren't any, now there has been, and I know you've done marathons and you've done official ultras. Has your relationship with competition changed when it comes to running?
Yeah, I mean, I think I found that the least enjoyable parts of the whole running experience is when I'm setting myself up to run a specific time. So I trained for the Seville Marathon this year, and I trained really hard over Christmas. Like, it was a 14, 16 week block, didn't miss a session. Everything was like lined up for it to try and get a real specific time, a big jump in a PB. And I almost set my own happiness based upon the action, that the value of this is the disciplines and the what I picked up in training. That's the real true value, is, the processes you pick up, and, who you have to become in order to do that, which is someone who's disciplined enough for 14 weeks straight to do what you need to do, to push yourself when you're tired, to recover properly, to improve yourself. That's the true value. The time is an irrelevancy. Like, no one's breaking any records here. Like, I'm content with that.
Only your own.
Yeah. All right. It's one of those things that actually, if you put your whole weight of value based upon the outcome, you lose the real value, which is the person you have to become in order to do that. That's the true value. So I absolutely smashed the training block. On the day, it was ferociously warm. I started getting cramp after. I smashed my first half. I even PB'd my half marathon the first. I was like, I am cruising my way here. 28K in, double quad cramp, salt pills couldn't do anything to it. It was hot. I'm a big guy. It's going to happen. Like, I should probably have picked a cooler marathon to do, but I thought February in Seville was not going to be that warm. It was freakishly warm at the time of year. It is what it is. And I remember when it happened, I was really gutted. And I beat myself up about it for the remaining sort of 12K. And your pace just went out the window. Everything was just gone.
It's so tough. It's so tough, that spell.
It was gutting, but I also saw so many people just falling at the wayside as well, who were just like, no, not on today. Everyone was slowing down. No one was going for it that day. It was just a seriously hot day. And I was like, I couldn't, I put too much weight and importance on the outcome rather than the processes. And actually, I finished it, and I still got PB. I was still pretty happy. Granted, my PB before wasn't that great, but it was still like, okay, I got a PB here. Yeah. And actually, I was only upon reflection, I was like, you're looking at the wrong thing here. And actually, so I've stopped putting weight on those sort of things. I mean, again, with anything, you have a rough idea of it, but again, it's, it's, you can't suspend everything on the outcome because
you can't control the outcome.
You can't control the outcome. The only thing you can control is the process behind it. And actually, I did everything within my power to stick to that plan, to stick to that program, worked on everything, left no stone unturned. Like, I was on that program. I was so happy. I was like, ticked all these boxes. Surely the next box tick is this. And it's like, okay, well, that's also a great example of life for you. Sometimes you do all the right things and it still doesn't work. It doesn't work out the way you thought. But again, the value is always in doing the right things and understanding that in order to get necessarily what you want, it may not happen for you. Like, it still may not happen for you, but the true value, what you need, is the thing that you did anyway.
Yeah.
So it's only a reflection. I was like, oh, actually,
you're spot on. You're spot on. And listeners you could be sitting talking about my Edinburgh Marathon experience in May there. But the exact same thing where the work was put in. I didn't miss a single session. Yeah. I did go in with an A goal, a B goal, and a C goal, and I got the B goal, but I didn't get maybe what I would have felt like I deserved from it, which was I really wanted to run that sub 320. I wanted to get the good for age, but when you pin so much on an outcome, the one thing I hadn't banked on was training in Scotland in the winter for a marathon that ended up 18, 19 degrees that day. Like, and I am not what you must be closer to 100 kilos. You're a big guy, 6'4".
101.
101 kilos. I'm about 80 kilos. It's bloody hard for me to cool down. I don't know how the hell you manage it in that heat.
It's serious. It's seriously hard now. So he's always putting those elements in there. And I spoke to my coach afterwards, and he was like, dude, it's this is great. He was like, that's a great outcome for considering the conditions. Like, and again, this is learning process. When it gets above a certain temperature, like being a bigger guy, like I'm gonna suffer a bit more. It's gonna be harder to cool myself down. Like, just being aware of those things, and there's lessons to be learned from that. And again, I will add to the character building to it. Like, just things don't go your way, and that's fine. Like, you will learn from it. And actually, I took more from it. And then 2 weeks later, I jumped into Paris half because I was like, you know what? I want to go hit something
2 weeks later, when you should be doing nothing.
Yeah, it was 5 degrees at the start line, and I was like, fantastic. And I managed to break every single PB, 5K, 10K, half. Because I just took those 2 weeks off. I was like, let's rest the body up. Let's get ready, do a speed session a couple of days before, and just sort myself out. And I went into that, and I had so much fun. So also, I went into it with I was like, let's just try and go for this pace and see what happens and have fun with it. And I actually, to be fair, the second half, I felt my legs being heavy. I hadn't recovered properly from the marathon yet. But it was one of those things, I had so much fun. Like, I had headphones out. I was cheering the crowd. I was yelling, LA, everyone. I was supporting people around me. I was chatting to people when I was running. Yeah. I was having the most fun with a race I could have done. And I finished that. I PB'd the half, and I was like, that was so enjoyable. Obviously, the conditions are nicer. With it being cooler, which definitely suited my size now. But because I went in with no expectation, I had a great time. I enjoyed it so much more. And I had I could have done that slower. I would have had a great time still. It was the occasion. Understanding that, again, like, I have no control of that outcome. I just went into the best time, and I enjoyed it, and it was fun. And I was looking around. I was in a beautiful city. Whereas Seville, I couldn't tell you what street I was on. I couldn't tell you anything I remember from that day. I was just blinkers on, head going in, real, like, serious, let's go mode. Paris, I was like, let's have some fun here. Let's enjoy this. Let's chat to people. And I had all these French people being like, trying to chat to me, being like, look at the size, how fast you go. And I was like, come on, like, just...
Like, I've seen you in TikTok.
Yeah, no, there's a few of those as well, but it was just brilliant. I had such a great time. And then after that, there was a friend of mine who did it as well, and we went out for food after. And I was like, this was such an enjoyable experience. Seville was a bit like, again, you're putting too much pressure on yourself. I got to take it back, like, I'm not, no one, no one's paying me based upon the time of marathon. No. This is my job. My job is, it's just to enjoy and experience it. And, I think I was doing a disservice to running by putting that much pressure on myself and then putting that expectation. I know that, maybe translate to telling other people they should be expectation. And actually coming out the other side of all that, I learned one thing is, like, your times and paces, that's not everything.
And almost nobody cares. We say it every episode here. Like, the difference between the pressure you put yourself under and I did. See if I achieve that good for age time, and if I get it the next time, people will read that post that you make with the exact same level of scrutiny that they read the other one, and they'll say, no matter what, well done. That,
100%. The value of you as a runner is not dependent on the times
No.
you. I think that's such an important message to say, because a lot of people don't go and do events because they're like, oh, well, I'm not at this level. And every now and then I'll see people, running community is one of the most positive communities out there, I think.
It really is.
Really is. You still have that very small percentage of people that are a bit like, well, you shouldn't be entering this race unless you can run it this time. It's like, it ain't about that. And I feel very sorry for people who put all their value and how they view other runners based upon their time. We all are running our own race. We're all doing our own thing. And again, like, if you're able to do these things, enjoy those things without the pressure of the time you run it, you are winning at running.
So the guy that suffered in Seville then runs Paris, and as you said, big guy, like you are not. We speak about all the body types and shapes, and a runner's a runner. Doesn't matter what you look like. What in the hell possesses you to say, I know what's next ultra? Like,
I'd already done an ultra last year. I ran the Thames Park 100k because I was like, what's the closest ultra to my house? I live in Balham in southwest London.
But why? What's in your head to say, I know what this guy needs and he's running 100k, even the Thames Path? Like, where does that bit come from of the distance? Because that's kicking on a level in terms of the base you need.
That was a case of it wasn't that, again, this is going back to the point of, it wasn't that I wanted to run 100k, it's that I wanted to be a person and I wanted to pick up the disciplines of a person who could train to run 100k and actually run it and actually put a good effort in, sustain their pace throughout, go into the strategy behind it. And that being my first ultra event, like I'd run quite a few 50ks in training in the build up for it, because I just wanted to, again, go past the marathon distance and just see, like, I didn't collapse and die. Like, I was
build
like,
the confidence.
It gives that confidence there, and it was just a case. Okay, well, look, let's sort of see where the limits are of these things, and let's see how I feel in this situation. Let's see where does the biggest thing is always, where does my mind go to? Like, when I think I can't do something, and then you do something, what is that? Almost like a game, like level unlocked. Like, let's see what's going on here. So, granted, the further I'd run before the 100k was 50k, because I didn't want to, absolutely destroy myself too much.
Yeah.
And again, it was a case of, let's see what goes. And again, I went in roughly. I was like, look, I want to try and get under a certain time here. But if I don't, I don't. Let's just enjoy. Let's just try and sustain a pace. And, let's see when I'm in trouble and I got to ask myself something, ask myself to give a bit more, what will I find when I do that? And went through the day. The worst I felt was at 20k. I had a weird pain in my hamstring. I thought, oh,
really?
God,
that early?
Then all of a sudden it kept going through. Checkpoint. Fine. Eat, fuel, hydrate, chat to people, met some amazing people on the run. I just had a really enjoyable time. Then I was like, oh, that's 50k. Then it's like 60, then it's 70. Then it's like, oh, I'm just hit past double marathon distance. I'm like, I'm still fine. I'm still me. I'm still having a good time. I'm still cracking the same jokes. I'm still all with it. And then the day starts going on, hit 90 or so. Then it starts as the sun was going down a bit. I was not in my head, but it was a point of like, okay, I'm now at a point where like I'm starting to ask myself very deep questions here that I usually day-to-day will not ask.
Yeah.
And it's a case of like really unlocking certain things there. And I've noticed this quite unique thing where a lot of time the physical pain we're feeling in running is more in our heads than anything else. Because I had this pain in my feet towards the end, about 92k in, awful pain in my feet, and it was building and building. It wasn't going well. I was thinking, God, and I really went deep into the tapping in some things in there, and I kind of came through a point and asked myself some very difficult questions, and I gave myself some answers. And once I got through that, every bit of pain in my feet that had been nagging me for a while disappeared.
Yeah.
I was like, hang on a minute, was that really pain, or was I holding on to something in my head a little bit there?
Mm-hmm.
And I come through the other side, and in the last 5k, I was like, all right, let's go. Like, there's 5k to go. I've done a million 5ks. Let's just go. And I just start picking the pace. I feel like I'm just woken up out of bed and running 5k. And I was like, this is it's in where what you're actually capable of doing, and what you think you're capable of doing, are two vastly different things.
Yeah.
And the ability to tap into that and get to that place, because it's a very rare. There's very limited times in our life where we had the opportunity to do events like this. It's not every week, it's not every month. It's a handful of times over a few years that you're in a situation where you're in the back end of 80, 90 kilometers on that day, and you're moving forward. And it's like, let's use these unique moments and reflect on certain things and see what you find inside you, see where your mind's going to take you. And that was such a beautiful place to be in, a place I'd never really felt before. I'm not someone who's like, overly emotional day to day, a lot of stuff. I'm a human, I'm emotional, right? But I'm not someone who really, I'm focused too much on it. I found myself in this really beautiful place mentally that I was like, you know what? I love being in this place. I love asking myself these things. I love on those discovery sort of parts in your mind. And I thought it was fantastic. So I enjoyed that so much. I finished 100. I was like, I can see myself doing more of these. This is absolutely brilliant. Like, I was also a case of, I know what I made. I woke up the next morning and I went for a run just to make sure I was able to do so. Legs didn't fall off, feet were still there. Missed now, but that was fine. It was like, okay, like it really is just it's a mind thing. As long as you do the work and the training, it's all a mind.
The psychology bit is such an interesting one. Steve Magnus, the American coach, I love following him and his posts on Insta, and he's got his own podcast as well. And he goes deep on that. The stories you tell yourself, and like at 90k, you're telling yourself the same mental story that I might be telling myself at 7k of a 10k race. But I get the same feeling actually at 3k of a 5k race, and I got it in the last 10k of a marathon. It's not the distance, it's he talks about that self-sabotage almost of, it's preservation. You're almost making excuses to yourself as to, if I can't do this, here's why. And you have to kick through that. But that's the same for me on a 5k as, can I run it in this time? Because time is important to me on those short distances.
Sure.
But only to me. And in my head, I'm like, well, if I can't do this today, it's because, and he talks about it in depth, it's like you are protecting yourself. It's like somebody who doesn't put the training in, they can then say at the end, oh, well, it's because.
Yep, it was because of this. It's because of this.
It's so fascinating. It really is. So that 100k is for you, and those distances, that's just such a big learning curve coming from where you've come as a runner.
Yeah.
At this point, we're going to talk a wee bit about the challenge you've got upcoming, and I want to talk to you about your ambassadorship with Lululemon. That's actually how you first came in on my radar, I think. But was the seed already there for, I want to plot something different for myself, or were you looking at, where else do I go with this? How did this come about?
100%. It was more a case of like, I wanted to make sure I could do these things. And because the other thing I had a lot of with people being like, oh God, you're going to really damage your body doing this sort of stuff. And I've, had knee operations. I've had all sorts of things from rugby. I've had all sorts of horrific injuries through other sports. 3 years of running consistently now. I've touched wood, absolutely fine. I've had the odd treatment for things here and there, but nothing serious. Like, I had to have a scan on my knee last year, which is just a checkup from when I had my operation years ago. Never been in better condition. And it's like, I put a lot of it down, obviously, to strong base, running slowly most of the time, strong technique, like really honing in those sort of things there. And I was like, okay, this is not going to break me up. This is not going to, my body's much stronger than I maybe giving it credit for, durable, especially in a sport that maybe I traditionally thought I wasn't built for. But it was more a case of like, right, I love the event, was great. The event, hitting that thing, 100, that's great. But I love the idea of doing something solo, or something that's a bit unique that you can't really build an event around with a group of people to do a race. The challenge aspect really sort of sorted to me as well, because I know, as much as I love the organization, going through the whole process there was an element of it was almost not to say fabricated, but it wasn't like, it's hard to describe, but I kind of just fancied wanting to do something that wasn't a set course,
not an event, not a central event.
Not an event, exactly that. And I thought, you know what? Let's have a little think about what to do. And I was always the tube idea had been on my mind for a long time. It was during lockdown. My cousin lived in Highgate, so I'd cycle from Balham to Highgate, and I followed the Northern Line. And I always thought, and again, this is just a start early into running, I was like, God, this is a long way to run. Yeah. But it was just one of those things, like sort of ticking them off as I go, to know all the stops on the way. I'd tick them ahead, go, this stop, this stop, this stop, this stop, this stop. And when I go home that day, I'd cycle it down and go, this stop, this stop, this stop, this stop. And it was kind of one of those things that when I moved on in 2019, I was like, learning how to get around places, where to go here. It's nice when everyone knows when you turn up at one end of London, up above.
Oh, so you're not from London?
From Luton originally, then Cambridge.
Okay. So you didn't live in London the whole time?
No. So I was when I was sort of picking up areas, I know places from when I pop up at the tube, but when they're out to connect or link. And I was always like, at what point will I learn this? At what point will I know how to go from here to here, above ground, maybe on a bike, maybe running?
Yeah.
And as I started linking things together, I started to understand it more and find new places to run and new routes. And then it was kind of in my head for a while. And I looked at the total distance of the underground itself, and it was supposed to be 300 and something K. And I was like, okay, wonder if you did the multi-day around that. And I actually mapped it, and I realized that above ground, that as the train goes, is very straight. Obviously, above ground, you are limited to the roads, the paths, there's a lot more limitation there. Unfortunately, TfL did not give me permission to run like next to the train to go all the way down.
Shocking that,
Believe it or not. So I was very much limited to the case of, okay, like how are we going to what's the way we can do up there? So I routed it, used Strava, we're doing my route planning for everything, and came out of these different routes. And I was like, okay, let's just test some of these out. Let's go run a couple of these. I ran the Victoria line as it's a relatively easy one. Nice route, very simple. There's roads that link each of the stations. You're not getting you're not around the back of the houses at all. And it's a pretty nice route as well. It goes through Central, goes down south, I finished up in Brixton near mine, so it seemed quite nice there. So I hit on that, and it was I really enjoyed it. It was nice linking up these parts of London that I'd never ran between, like Walthamstow down Tottenham, all the way through Finsbury Park, then past Arsenal, and I was like, I've just kind of crossed the whole city here. And usually when you go up like a 20k, you loop it and back to where you are. You don't actually see that much stuff. You don't go too many other places. You maybe hit a few other, a couple other spots there. But when you go from one end to the other end, you really pass a lot. And I was like, I like the fact that I'd, gone through so many different boroughs, so many different areas. And that was kind of the point when I was like, nah, I want to really get started. So I mentioned the idea to Lululemon when I first had a meeting with them earlier this year. And they said, what are the things you want to do to get yourself more involved within the community, whether it's your community or the running community in London? I was like, they said, like, do you want to start maybe Run Club? And at the time, I was like, I don't know up to it. I was, again, this is a year of stepping out. We're going to Run Club in a bit, but like stepping out of comfort zones. At the time, I was like, I was well nervous about like inviting people to run with me.
Absolutely.
So I was like, you know what? This Run the Tubes, for me, it connects traditional other areas of London that people may not want to go into, and it's just something about it. It just did it for me. And I was like, this is exciting for me because again, I get to go every corner of London, and it's on the underground. If you're on the overground, terribly sorry. But it covers so many areas that I don't know, and it's uncharted territory. And also uncharted territory in distance and event scale.
And in the back-to-back nature. So I'm going to lay that out for anybody who's listening, and a lot of people will know of your challenge because it pops up a lot, and quite rightly so, it's getting great exposure. But the Run the Tube challenge that you've set yourself is running overground every London Underground line, linking them together though on 11 consecutive days. So I've got it marked at 572 kilometres, 300 and odd miles for those that work in miles, and you're going to go 11 consecutive days. You're going to run those lines. Is it? I've hit that right, haven't I?
Spot on. A line a day for 11 consecutive days. So see, the distance we cover each day is dependent on the line we're choosing to run. So again, we've got a whole range of lines there. So, the longest being the Central line at 92k. Is majority of the lines are above 70 odd k in total distance, and then we've also got a couple of smaller ones around the 30k mark, and then of course the Waterloo City 3k, which I'm very happy about in there.
Race day.
We're going to sandwich that one between an 80k and a 90k over the last 3 days. So the Saturday on the day before we finish is the Waterloo City. Get a lot of people as well who want to just run that sort of distance.
That's amazing.
That's a nice way. Now the beauty of the beauty of the event is it's able to connect. By running through people's areas, you don't have to run a whole line with me. You can run a station with me. That for me is everything, because again, running being this daunting thing. Before I got into running, I was very conscious of going, oh god, the idea of running a 5k or an event or let alone a marathon. I thought running's not for me because there's all these big distances you got to do.
Yeah.
In reality, there's no prerequisite to how far or fast you got to run to enjoy running or be a runner. Whether that's, do you want to run a kilometer in 7 minutes?
Yeah.
While stopping and taking walks. That makes you as much a runner as anyone.
It's a definite barrier for people, though, when it comes to running together and running socially. They see themselves as not being quick enough. I get this all the time with the community events that we're doing with the podcast. People messaging you and they desperately want to be a part of something bigger than themselves, but I'm too slow. I'm like, this is easy pace, call it what you like, sexy pace. This is the pace. The pace will be your pace. If you are at the back, that will be the pace for the day.
That's how you say it. Absolutely.
But it's difficult for people to sort of comprehend that. I want to ask you, have you read the book Walk the Lines, The London Underground, about the London Underground? This is a book I read years ago.
My dad's got it for me.
Yeah.
My birthday next week, so he's got me a few like London themed things, which I think is brilliant.
I sent my sister it. She lives down in Surrey, so she's in that area. I'm down there a couple of times a year, and that book is somebody who walked all the lines, and I suppose they were doing it for connection to tell the story of London and Londoners, whereas you're doing it for a whole different reason. But you mentioned Lululemon, and there's I was going to say there's a thing we have in common because obviously I'm 6'4" and really well built as well, like you, and bench press like the weight of a small rhino. But apart from those things, I've taken up the Lululemon ambassadorship in Glasgow, so I'm the run ambassador there. Just recently, your ambassadorship's a different thing. Yours is regional in a big city like that. How did it come about? How did they know of you? Because I know they tend to approach you for these things, but how did you come on the radar?
So it's quite interesting. So I've always taken the position with anything branded in social media, if you don't already use the product or the service, or it's something you don't sort of aspire to use one day, or this sort of stuff, it's not the right thing to sort of sign up or line up there. So with regards to that, as the channel was sort of growing over last year, was sort of a real testing period. It took me, especially TikTok was where I first started posting this stuff on, a whole year of posting to not much outcome. And that's fine. It was a testing period there. When I started to get some rhythm and consistency with the nature of storytelling and understanding the best way to structure videos to allow for ideas to be shared in a very digestible and easy manner that helps with video performance, once that sort of came about, I started getting approached by a lot of different brands about brand deals, about all this kind of stuff. And they were all from brands I didn't use. So I just said no. And it's strange that because, again, I wasn't trying to make this the thing I did. I was just doing it as a passionate thing of mine, which is to share about this beautiful thing, this sport that we all love.
It should enhance what you do as opposed to being the thing you do.
100%. So I was like, I don't really want to, I just kept saying no to stuff. And I said, look, a friend of mine who she works in the world of social media. She was like, listen, who would you want to come? If anyone came across you and said, hey, we're this company, what company would they be? Who would you want to work with? And I listed out a handful of companies that I use their products or services. I love what they do. I love their story. I love their, the work in the community. It has to be more to it than that. And it was a case of that. And I wrote that out. And about 10 days later, we got an email from Lululemon being like, love what you're doing. We want to have a discussion about some ideas, will you be open to that sort of stuff? And I was like, I would be, but at the same time as well, I'm also very conscious of I don't want my page to become like an advert for any brand. It's it's to be that. Had a great sit down with them. They were like, listen, we don't want that either. We're just going to want to support what you're doing. You already wear our clothes in a lot of your videos, which is true. Like, a lot of my stuff was really from them. And I was like, okay, great. And they're like, look, we want to help and support what you're doing. We like exactly what it is. And for them, it was like, they weren't like, we need you to hit these numbers. There was no expectation. They were like, we want you to amplify what you're doing with a greater reach, to reach more people, to help within communities. And their whole message and ethos was, what can you do for the running community? Rather than what you do for yourself or the channel for us, what can you do to the community? They were very community first, which I was like, I didn't think businesses were like that. I'm quite a distrusting person when it comes to businesses usually. I'm like, what's your angle here? What are you trying to do?
There's a cynicism. I think this is a great, I'm delighted that you can come on and talk to this, and it doesn't have to be me explaining, because I've been asked a lot, how did this come about and how did you contact Lululemon? And I'm saying I didn't. It was through, I was at a run retreat with them, and then we stayed in touch, and it's all been in and around community and community development and an authentic relationship. But I was the same as you. I went for that first meeting and I'm like, what? But what do you want? But what is it you want? And they're saying, no, we don't. I'm like, so you're going to give me this clothing to wear that I already like, and I'm going to, right, but what do I need to do? And you're giving, on paper, you're doing so little for them, except I suppose what you are doing is you're amplifying their values.
That's what it's about. And it all lines up and combines the values, which is why I love them so much. It's also why a few different brands, I'm not going to name the brands I said no to, because again, it's not relevant, but a lot of them were offering really lucrative things. Really lucrative stuff. I was looking at me like, are you sure? Like, what? And it was a case of like, okay, this is where you have to ask questions of yourself. What do you stand for? What is it you mean? Why are you doing this? Are you doing this to enrich yourself through brand partnerships, brand deals, or are you doing this for the real reason, which is why I started this, was to have an impact and to help people the same way running has helped me, and try and explain that to other people and try and message that through what I do.
Yeah.
And I was like, that has to be that is the priority with this channel. I always say, like, other followers and video views, there are want a metric to measure how well things are going. That's fine. That's never the goal with this.
You never started running and sharing for those goals, because
No,
if you did, you would never achieve anything in either field.
absolutely not, because everything's then pinned and based upon numbers and how things will do. Video as well, that's great. Video doing well, that's absolutely fine either as well. It's not, my happiness with social media is not dependent on the outcome forms of videos.
Yeah.
Is it good when I get to have a video that's shared a lot of times and people understand and people can embrace it? Great. At the same time, one person sees the video and they benefit from doing that and they like it, then that's fine by me. Like, again, it's not the case with there, and which for me is, which means that I'm never stressed about, how I posted X amount of videos this week. I don't know. This week I've had so much to do this week with regards to planning the Tube project, other things that I think it's like I didn't post 4 days this week. Yeah. I'm absolutely fine with that. Like, it's just like, it's cool. Like, I don't have to be, I'm not trying to be front of mind on everyone's mind here. Like, I'm
actually interested in this, Johnny, and I think other people will be, even that are not involved with a brand. Is this now the thing you do in terms of running, or do you still have a job outside running?
I still do. I've taken a bit of a step back this year, though, while focusing on the project, because it's one of those things that, with regards to focusing on the training aspects, the mental bandwidth to deal with all this, because it's not just training for a race or an event, it's also co-organising the event. Lululemon is very helpful with the whole thing, but I've had to pull a lot of things together. So they're taking a lot of the burden actually for helping organise with this, which is fantastic. But at the same time, like, there's a lot I'm behind the scenes going on to make this a really cool event, to make sure that, and more elements come into this, especially considering it's like there's a crew of people, there's a team behind this. There's like, and also I've got a trainer.
That makes sense.
So it wouldn't have been fair to try and do that one there. So I'm still in touch with stuff with work things here and there, but again, it's a bit of a step back to it all there, and I can, and pick things up again towards the later the year, which is fantastic. But it's more a case of there's only so much you can do in that, and I think as well, I'm quite honest on social media in the sense of like you can do anything, but you can't do everything. Like, doing this means that there's lots of things I can't do. So it's not me being like, well, look how grown I am, I'm running all this. Like, but I'm also going to bed at 9 o'clock. I'm also not going out for meals with friends. I'm also not doing this. There's a long list of things. Like, I'm not going on holiday anytime soon. Like, I've got all this to do. I got my cousin's wedding coming up next month, and I'm like, cool, I got a day to go out there, do the wedding, get home, get training. I've got to run, I think, a 30K in the morning with wedding. Like, it's all that's how I know that by the time it gets like 5 p.m. that day, I'm going to be knackered and I'm going to want to get home. I'm aware of that.
I thought that might have been the case for you, because I do this on a Monday, predominantly the podcast. I do 4 days a week at work. This is a sideline thing. It's something I thoroughly enjoy.
Sure.
But with growth comes, and I'm speaking about growth on a completely different scale than you're on here. I know what the inbox looks like on a Monday or a Thursday when an episode goes out, and you get your DMs going, and you're trying to get back to people. And how are you managing to balance keeping the running with growing your community?
That's why I went down the run club route. So I'm always keen. I always try and get back to as many people as possible. And I'm also conscious of being present in living day to day. Like, I don't want to be looking at my phone constantly. As much as I'm filming stuff on the phone, editing stuff on the phone, when I'm not using it, I don't want to be sitting around there. When I'm out, when I'm seeing friends and I'm running, like, I don't want to be checking certain things. But the problem with that is things do build up. So I had, like, the other Sunday, I took a series of stories up on a reflectory thing, and I left my phone from 7 p.m. in another room, picked up the next morning. There were several hundred messages on there, responded to things. I'm like, I can't get back to everyone now. And I felt really guilty about it, because I've always said, like, if you need something or you want to have chat, something, they're always open there. And got to a point where I was like, this is actually getting quite difficult now to do, because that was also the thing. I usually try and reply to every comment on every video. I think something like, I checked the numbers recently in the last 12 months, it's like something like 35,000 comments across TikTok. Yeah. And it's like, I get to a point you just can't.
You reply to one and you think, oh, I need to reply to them all now because I replied to one, or it looks like, but that's here in your head.
It's getting to that way. So I thought, you know what? What's the best way? What's going to provide the most impact to me as many people as possible, or to connect with as many people as possible, or give the most value? And I was like, I'm a pretty social person. I was concerned. I was a bit nervous about doing run club stuff, because there's also really cool lots of run clubs around London, and I was like, they're kind of serving the purpose of it. But I was like, no, like, when the build up to the Tube, let's just start inviting people to your long run. So I put on my stories like, listen, I'm doing a long run this Saturday. I got 22K to do. If you want to join me, we're going to do a couple laps to Hyde Park, and we're going to go down the river, and we're going to just do 22K. More want to join me. This is the pace I'm going to run at. We'll take some stops. It's going to be hot. We'll take some more breaks. Like, it's kind of how I'm going to be going about doing it. welcome to join me, no pressure. It's not like a run club, it's just me going for a long run, and you come join me if you want to. Open invitation. 40 people turned up.
That's self-preservation. It is a run club. This is the Scrambled Legs Run Club, and I saw your video where you're panning around. I'm like, oh my God, he's got about 50 people there joined him for a run.
I was like, what? This bear in mind, I was nervous that no one would show up because I was like, it's 22k is a long way, and I was a bit like, okay. I was a bit like, so anything. You always self-doubt and think, what's the worst possible outcome with this? I could never imagine how many people were interested to do that, and also just allowed me the opportunity to meet so many people that have seen. Because I was like, how did everyone hear about this? It's like, no, they watch your videos. They know this stuff. And I'm like, okay, for me, it's like, this means that the thing I wanted to do is to have impact with the videos that help people. That these people are now out doing this stuff, and a lot of those people have never ran that distance before, and they wanted to that day. And I made sure I had a good chat with everyone who came that day, and I was able to have a conversation with people and like listen to their stories, listen to how they got into running, listen to why they were out doing that. And it was such a beautiful experience to have that, speak to people that, because again, with the social media stuff, it sometimes can be a bit of a bubble. You only interact with people through a screen. It's not, and I'm very conscious that that's not real life. Very conscious of that. That's simply putting content out there. That's one thing. The fact that having people, coming to these events and enjoying those events and having conversations with me, like I do it every week now. It's like before we run, I'll go around and make sure I say hello to every single person who comes there. We've been ever since then. That was last month we started. Came up with a name because I do long runs every Saturday, and the whole concept behind it is like, if you like help people to get into doing longer runs, you don't have to run the whole thing.
It's a great name.
It's a great. I think the name kind of works pretty well with it. And then that was the concept behind it, because a lot of run clubs, especially, aren't doing that longer runs.
No, it's 5, 10Ks and all the longer stuff usually organised outside it with smaller groups.
So I was like, look, if no one's doing that. Look, I'm running far. The TikTok name was started as JD Runs Far. I kind of got to live up to the name of it there. So let's do long runs every Saturday. It's just a beautiful way to connect with people within the community, and it's also an opportunity because I was getting a lot of messages, people being like, hey, like, can I come join you in a run? And because of the time pressure I'm on now with Run the Tube, because the amount of training I've got to do, because like every run's very scheduled, it's like my coach has got it all laid out, and he's also laid out routes for me to do. I know where I'm going this run, I'm going this run. If someone's like, oh, can we go here? I'm like, I've got to run today at 6 a.m. till 8 a.m. That's my run today.
If you can be here, you can run, but I need to be there.
And even then, it's like, oh, well, I can make it there for 7. It's like, where to me? I'm like,
yeah.
At that point, it's starting to get, because I've run with so many people randomly messaging me off social media, being like, hey, can I run? I was like, yeah, go for it. Like, cool. Yeah. Now the demands are a bit higher with regards to timing.
That's keeping the thing, isn't it? You need to keep the thing, and not, 100%. Otherwise it would take over.
Exactly. So I was like, okay, let's just start doing these long runs on a Saturday. We'll keep the pace as a pretty 6-minute kilometer pace, nice and easy. Take stops, take hydration breaks, and again, it's just a wonderful thing to see. And then we had 60, 70 people turn up last Saturday.
It's amazing. I saw it.
Park and Victoria Park, and then I also put out. I had lots of people messaging me from other parts of the country. I noticed that it's because on the analytics it says where a lot of other people from what cities follow you. London, but Manchester, Dublin, Birmingham, Edinburgh, Cardiff, lots of people in those cities as well. So I was like, you know what? Like, I realised that I've got a free Sunday coming up, and I was like, you know what? And also, I'm on a test week, so I'm running some pretty high volume for 6 days straight now. I was like, let's just put a poll out and see wherever gets the most votes, I'll go to. And I'll just do a pop-up run and see what happens. Dublin won, very fine margin. I think like 721.
So that's well, yeah.
718 for Manchester. So I kind of feel like I need to go to Manchester as well with this, because there's a awesome running community in Manchester, and a lot of people up that part of that neck of the woods. I feel like I really want to go and connect with. Dublin won. So I said, you know what, let's do it. Let's put it together. I think at the moment, I checked this morning, it's about 120 people have signed up in Dublin. Sunday.
That's class.
And I'm like, I don't think English people don't usually get that good a reception in Dublin. I'll be honest.
Well, let's wait to see when you get there.
Absolutely. So, but I organised. I just also realised that when I was looking at flights over, I was like, Jesus. I was like, I've been to Dublin quite a few times and that, and I was looking at the price, going, what's going on? It's the All Ireland final on the Sunday in Croke Park. It's the busiest in Dublin. So I was thinking, why is there no hotels available, or why are the flights like 10 times the price? I was like, oh god, I picked the worst one. But I couldn't think of a better. But, honestly, it's. I'm so excited. The Lululemon ambassadors in Dublin as well will be really helpful organising it all.
Class.
Just honestly fantastic. I was so excited to go out there because again, it's one of those things that I'm in midway through making a video about what values are to me with regards to running, with regards to social media, because I think it's an important video to talk about because again, like we've discussed so far, what are the measures, what are the things that matter to me as to why I do this and why I share these sort of things there. And the impact for me is always like, again, does the content help people and encourage people to lead better lives, to be more confident, to get involved with running, to focus on self-improvement, do this. In the same way that running helped me through the same sort of things there. And being able to pop up on a story and say, yeah, I'm going to do this event over in Dublin, and all these people want to come out and join, like on a Sunday morning. I'm honestly blown away by it, and it means so much to me as a person, like that people would like to come to do that and join.
I think you'll be surprised by the difference going to a place like Dublin.
Yeah,
I would know less about Manchester, but certainly coming up here as well to these type places, at how different and how welcoming people are, because there is not as many avenues. When you're in London, you're both anonymous in one way because it's so busy, but you're also, there are so many good groups to tap into. And I've spoken to the likes of Emancipated Run Crew, and I know you've got Run Dem Crew, and you've got some really big, well-established run groups. If you want to be part of something, there's ample opportunity in London.
Yeah.
You get out to somewhere like Dublin, Glasgow, the scale's not the same. It's sporadic, and it's something probably that we're wrestling with at the moment. So I've created a club space on Facebook, which I didn't ever intend to be what this was, but people are looking for connection and that togetherness and places to run. So I think that'll be welcome. But I love what you're saying there about that values, and that's value what you measure and measure what you value. So only if you let it become about clicks and numbers, that's what it will be. So if you're able to define that, and if anybody's sitting listening thinking about their own running, value in your running and measuring your running what you value, don't get fixated in pace if that's not your thing. And if it is, crack on, be as fast as if that's the thing.
Hey, look, if you're someone who's elite level ability or potential, then that's relevant for you. That's the important factor to you, because that's what the meaning is behind it. For 99% of runners, we are not.
But even if it's just to get faster against you, that's the thing that tickles your pickle and gets you out the door. Go, do it.
100%. For me, it's always one of those things that I think it's connectivity and community around things. Like there's nothing more. One of the things I love is there's nothing more beautiful in life than connecting new people through shared interests. And I think running is such a wonderful way of doing that, where you can bring people together. And that's what I love, is seeing people meet at the event. So people that didn't previously know each other, now coming week on week, and now got there's a few people that come every week that I've like right, you guys are like admin helping now.
A sort of core group, that's what happens. Yep.
Vital to organisation, looking at routes, looking at planning, come up with names, come up with all the. There is an element of organisation around that has to happen around this now as well, which is something that I just thought it'd be a few people turn up week in, week out, I just run with, and now it's like this thing where there's a lot more people turning up. It's like, okay, we now need to actually sort some things out here. So, actually making a group on Strava, for example. I was just posting my stories, and one of the girls can you make a group, so we can have a resource? Because basically people just DM and be like, where are we meeting this week? Yeah. What's happening this week? And I'm like, oh, right. I was just, again, surprised that people wanted to come back, because I thought by making the runs a bit longer, because as my volume increased and my runs got longer on Saturdays, I was like, well, less people want to come now. Now I'm doing 30K this Saturday. More people came. I'm like, oh, God, because what I realized as well, if it's a 5 or a 10, people won't travel on the tube. They'll just run that in their local area. They go, I'm not going to spend 30 minutes traveling to a place to run a 5K or a 10K.
Yeah.
Okay. Whereas if it's a 20K, 30K, it's fine, because a lot of people don't want to do those runs on their own. The time passes a lot faster doing that with people who are also going through that. There's something to be said in doing an element of suffering with people around you.
Oh, it makes a huge difference in that marathon block. Those club runs, I did join a club, and doing those club runs with people was a game changer rather than slogging on your own.
Oh my God, the time I always catch myself checking the watch, checking how far in I am when I'm running solo and that. And it's just actually staggering when you don't watch away, just heart rate up there and just get through it. Every now and then you're checking, you're like, wow, we covered some distance here. Your mind just goes away. Same when you're doing ultras. And my last ultra was in America, and I did it with a group of running content creators from New York who really wonderful people. I never met them before, we chatted for a while. They invited me to say, hey, do you want to come run this with us? And I met them in New York the day before. Some of them I met literally up in this place in upstate, and we ran a 50 miler. It was a pretty hilly one, and we spent the 6 of us ran it all together the whole day. They had a big crew come up from the city as well. So every aid station we went to these amazing people, and I was like, this is what it's about. It was one of the most fun runs I've ever had. The whole day was just brilliant because I was just spending with like-minded people, enjoying the run, enjoying the scenery. It was truly wonderful, and I had such a good time with everyone.
Were you nervous stepping into that space?
No.
With other people?
No.
Quite confident.
No, absolutely fine there. Again, it's like I'm a pretty easygoing person when it comes to me getting on with people. I think it comes with the territory where like I'm quite a social person. I'm one of those sort of people that can kind of talk with anyone.
Still get that same fear though that I have. We're doing a volunteer park run tomorrow takeover, so we've got I think 29 or 30 of us or something going there, and we'll do all the roles. But I've always still get the fear on every community event because it's still new of going, what if nobody turns up? What if I'm myself?
That I do get nervous about is that I think now it's been a little bit now that I'm pretty happy that people tell. I think it's now because we've got the Strava group, people can see it being posted, get a notification about the next event, and it's a new event. Like that certainly helps out with it.
Yeah,
but it's definitely a case of like when people are that was the concern was that you're putting yourself out there and it's
a big leap.
That's also the real way of measuring it. Like, do people care enough that they want to actually come do these things? And that's actually a big thing. And that for me is almost like a measure of impact. That people are willing to give up their time to come and join you for a run is a big ask, and I'm aware of that. So that's why views are one thing, follows are one thing. They're a measurement. They're not.
Yeah, and it can be that's that for somebody. That's a big difference between getting on a tube or a train or a car and coming to physically put themselves out there.
That's a big difference there. Yeah. So it's understanding that. That's what I think it is, because then it goes, hang on a minute, because you're really actually saying, hang on, this is what's judging. This actually has a bit more meaning to it. So I remember after the first one we did, so we hit that. So many people did their first half marathon as well, which is wonderful. We had a drink after, and I was sitting around. I was like, I had a big grin on my face, and I was like, this is actually brilliant. Like, all these people coming together, and I got to talk to everyone throughout the day as well, and they were sharing their own stories and their own experiences of running. And it was a really beautiful thing to listen to. I was just touched how many people turned up to it and wanted to run and wanted to share that. And then they talked about, when they first saw a video of mine, what they really liked about it. And that was like, there's comments are one thing, but actually meeting people who are like, hey, I really like what you're doing. I love what you talk, listen to the way you
it's testament to their belief in you as well, though. And there's an authenticity, or people don't turn up to that unless they are confident that you're going to be what you said you are. And that's, you should be very, very proud of that. And a lot of them, that might be the first time they've ever run with anybody, and will open up a whole new world.
Are you kidding me? Like, I'm also aware of, like, I think I'm a pretty confident person, but if I was to turn up to a place where I didn't know anyone, to run with people I didn't know, I would be nervous about it. I have been. I've done it before when I've got a run glove. I get nervous.
Same.
And it's a bit like, even though I'm a very confident, outgoing person, if I don't know anyone somewhere and I'm doing this thing, it's like,
You're vulnerable. It doesn't matter. I don't care how confident you are. You're going to put yourself out there.
Yeah, you're going to be a bit vulnerable. It's an element to it there. So knowing that many people have chose to do that and put themselves in a situation is a real special thing. And I don't take any of this for granted. And I think it's like, even though it's a weekly thing now, it's a very special thing. And I give it the respect it deserves. And it's always one of the things I'm very excited. I mean, this weekend, I'm excited for the London one. I'm literally finishing the run, straight home, grab the bags, shower, go to the airport, fly to Dublin, and we're out there for that. And I'm like, this is, and then also the people who've, like, I've had so many messages from people coming to the run who've been offering, like, go to this place for food, go to this place here, that offer me suggestions and whatnot.
Keep doing it. There's something very special brewing there, and actually it's exciting because you're probably at the start of that element of what you do. 3 things. 1, how can people get involved in supporting? Your hopes for it, and your other one would be, if you were being in a more vulnerable state, fears for it. Where's your head at on hopes, fears, and how people can help?
So hopes for it is all goes smoothly, no injuries, no incidents, because again, there's an element of risk involved with running on road. It's majority of it's going to be on road. It's going to be ups and downs, curves. It's just a case of making sure myself and the crew all go safe, all run smoothly. That's paramount number 1. How can people help? Come out and run with me. is the main one. If I'm going through your neighborhood, so we're going the next few weeks, we're going to have everything up and live with regards to the schedule, which routes I'm taking, what time of day, roughly going to be going through certain areas. And I'm going to be keeping everyone up to date on the stories as well on Instagram, just so everyone more or less knows where I'm going to be at, which is pretty important. So to sort of keep an eye on where things are going. Other ways of helping would be to donate to Calm. Our fundraising links will be up soon.
I'll share that on our page when it's available.
Appreciate that. That'll be coming up very soon, and then it will be just a case of, you know, whatever that is. If a donation to you is financial or coming to run with me, either are fantastic. You know, I respect that in times like these, it's a big ask for donations.
Yeah.
So I
but people still want to help. I mean I
really appreciate that.
When does it begin? What's the date of the first run?
First run is September the 7th, the Northern Line, which is 70 kilometres in total. That'll be September the 7th, we're going to start at the top. So the end of that day will be Morden in the south, which is significantly close to my house, which is fortunate. But that's the first day. And the last day will be Sunday, September the 17th, which will be the Central Line. We're going to finish that day actually at Oxford Circus. So that day we're going to start in the middle. We're going to go all the way out to Epping. I'm actually going to get someone to drive me to West Ruislip because that's the fast way to get there because I don't want to be off my feet too long. If I took the train, it'd take an hour and a half. Yeah. And then West Ruislip, then the Ealing part of it, and all the way up to finish it in the centre. I just thought with it being a London event, it makes more sense to finish in Central rather than finish out in or, you know, somewhere far out. So that's fantastic. And so the most important thing is, you know, anyone is more than welcome to come and join me for any section they want. They want to join me for a stop, they want to join me for a couple of stops, they want to join me to run the entire district line for 70k, you are more than welcome to do so. That's the crux of it there. And there's so many ways then people can get involved, and like the financial bit's not the barrier. And we finish always with a quick fire round here. And then I've given you a wee heads up that I'll be asking you for a track for our playlist as well. Yeah. So if you have another 3 or 4 minutes to spare, can I hit you with some quick fire questions? Let's do it.
On your marks, get set.
Favourite running shoe of all time?
Adidas Adios series. The carbon plate one they just released is the fastest shoe ever running. Very enjoyable. I've got wide feet and I pronate a little bit. They're wonderful.
Nearly bought them yesterday. I saw them in a sale. Favourite training route?
My house, down Wandsworth Common to the river at Battersea Park, 2 laps of Battersea Park, up to Clapham Common, back to Balham.
That was never going to be a 5k, was it?
No, that's about 12. That's 12k, that one.
That's not too bad. That's probably about 90 less than I thought you would say. Proudest running moment?
Oh, proudest running moment. Run club. Enjoy, everyone coming for that first one. Really special moment. You know, it was 20 something k. It just meant a lot. It meant a lot to me.
Do you run with or without music?
Well, 50-50 sometimes. So if it's sometimes I will do, but this last couple of weeks I haven't been listening to music. But sometimes I do. I've got what I call the struggle playlist, where I'm feeling rough. I need to get moving on something, and I don't want to do it. This playlist comes on. Worst race or running experience? Seville Marathon. Go-to pre-long run meal. So I'm interested in the morning of these big challenges. What you eating, and maybe the night before and the morning of. He's going to hold something up here. Crumpets. Okay. On one of my videos, I did really, really well. I called them English muffins because I was in a hurry doing the voiceover. It did 2 million views on TikTok, and there's about 1,000 comments being like, "They're not crumpets, not English muffins." People were getting angry about that. Yeah. So for reference, I don't know, crumpets. I have crumpets with butter and jam on them. I have 4 of them. It's about 1,000 calories, enough carbohydrates, pre-run. That's my meal. Night before, baked sweet potatoes with some chicken and vegetables. Yeah. People love to correct you online, don't they? Yeah. Oh, people like, did you do that on purpose to get more people to comment on things? I'm like, generally didn't, but I also thought I thought of the same thing, I'll be honest. You'd need to be a social marketing genius to get that intentionally, to know you'd be getting that reaction. I am not that smart, I'll put it out there. If you could run alongside yourself as a beginner runner, what advice would you give? Keep smiling. One inspirational Instagram profile you never skip by? Oh, that's a great question. My good friend Zoe Powell. She was an accountant who's now an absolute savage. She manages March On's gym in Stratford. She's incredible. She ran the 100k with me. We ran a marathon together in Dubai when we were both first getting into running. She's now run a series of ultra marathons. She is someone who got into insane physical condition whilst working full time as an accountant. And she's now progressed and she's now pivoted her career into fitness. And I think she's one of the most inspiring people I know.
Amazing. I will link to her profile in the episode description as well if anybody wants to go and find that. Favourite park run, if you have done them?
Never done a park run.
Never? Oh, come on. Right, that's my mission, is to get you in a park run.
I just kind of do my own little thing though. I've never been.
Your Saturday long run does take it out of the equation if you do that. I tend to do my long run on a Sunday, so we're getting you to a park run.
Yeah, fair enough.
Finish this sentence. I press play and run because
I show up for myself.
Nice. Doesn't need further explanation. That's a great mantra to articulate why you run. Final course of business on the podcast is always our guest picks a running track to add to the Press Play and Run playlist on Spotify. So this would be a song that would be on something like your struggle playlist, something that doesn't come out the rotation and that you can dip into when you really need it. So let's have it and why.
ABBA SOS.
Oh my God. I didn't think the playlist could be worse, Johnny, and you've done it.
Oh, we went there. It is. There's something about ABBA, and I may not give off ABBA vibes. I don't know.
No, you definitely don't. This is their biggest outlier so far.
Massively. There is the musical genius of ABBA. I'll go down the rabbit hole of this. I don't know what it is. Honestly, I swear their music's made with drugs. I swear to God, because it's so addictive. No matter how bad I feel, I can put on ABBA, and there's something about it that just sparks something so beautiful inside people. When you see people singing ABBA, and you see people get together. And again, I just think it's wonderful music, and I'm always going to play it whenever I feel rough, whenever I need to get moving. There's something about the melody, something about the lyrics. It's something I love. A song we can sing to as well. I love a good set of lyrics in there. And SOS, it's got the beat. It's made for running. If you've never ran to SOS by ABBA, put it on next time you go for a run, and trust me, you will be moving to it.
I'll try it. I'm not trusting you on it. I am shocked and stunned that this is what we got from you. Do you know what? You should never judge before you ask the question.
100%. It's either going to be that or a Bruce Springsteen song, but I think ABBA won out on this one.
I would have been more on the Bruce camp there than ABBA, but there you go. I mean, talk about vulnerability. You're putting yourself out there. You've either just lost 500,000 followers or gained 500,000. I don't know which.
Who knows, really? But it's what I believe. I could have lied and said it wasn't, but no.
No. Listen,
I'm pretty sure it's my most played song on Spotify.
Wear your heart in your sleeve. I love it. I don't love the song, but I love the conviction.
It's got to be done. So yeah, ABBA SOS 100%. To be fair, you can play that principle most ABBA. Just whack an hour playlist on and enjoy yourself. And I always say as well, never be afraid to sing while you run. I do it all the time. I get some odd looks, so I don't care. You do. No, I never fear judging other people, especially if you're out in public. And the best way to get over that is run, sing at the same time.
We've got a former guest called Kaylee, and her profile's The Happy Diet on Instagram. She's started a sort of run karaoke series, so people like lip syncing while they're running, and there's been some absolute crackers. There's people going all out there on production value. It's like a short music video now. It's grown arms and legs. That sounds like something you could actually take and run with.
100%.
Johnny, last thing then is just to wish you all the very best. If we can make it happen to get down and run a part of that, I'm absolutely bang up for it. It would be a brilliant thing to be involved with. But you giving up your time with all this logistical stuff going on, hopefully we bring more eyes and ears to what you're doing. But just keep being you, keep doing what you're doing. Love the profile, love seeing the growth, love the authenticity of it. And I hope you get everything from it that you're looking for.
I appreciate it, mate. Thank you so much. And I appreciate you inviting me on today as well. And it's been a wonderful experience and wonderful to talk.
Thanks a million, mate. Good luck.
And take care, mate. Right? I'll see you soon.
Cheers. Thank you to you, the listeners, for joining us for another episode of the Press Play and Run podcast. You can really help to support the podcast by subscribing or following on your podcast platform of choice and by leaving a review. Don't forget to follow us on Instagram at Press Play and Run Podcast and to add the Press Play and Run playlist on Spotify. We'll be back every 2 weeks with new episodes, and please be sure to keep an eye on our Instagram page to find out which guests will be joining us. Until then, keep getting the trainers on, press play and run.